In part 6 of the video series, we are tearing apart and cleaning the front end before addressing any issues with the plastics. Here I've removed all the fairings, exhaust system, tank and eventually the front wheel. Now that we have everything removed, we can see that it needs a deep clean and detailing. I also take note of any missing fasteners. A quick inspection of the tank shows it to be in great condition with only a few paint chips in need of repair. I start by degreasing and cleaning the engine, then all around the carbs and airbox. Finally, I tackle the instrument cluster, wiring loom, switchgear and front forks. So starting with the front cowl, I remove the lights, the aftermarket screen which will be replaced, and I clean the light assembly and set it aside for later on. A closer inspection of the cowl identifies a broken mounting post for the inner trim piece. To repair this, I first glue the post back in position, and then using the plastic welding iron, I melt plastic welding rod into the crack around both sides of the post. As this post only takes a plastic clip, there is no need to add reinforcing as with other repairs. I now take the time to thoroughly clean the cowl and remove any hard residue such as road tar or paint scuffs with Goo Off. Be careful when using this on exposed decals as it can lift the colour if too much pressure or solvent is applied. I then remove any deeper scratches or scuffs with wet and dry 3000 grit foam pad. Inevitably, I find years of polish and dirt buildup along the edges of the decals. So I remove this with the edge of a small screwdriver. Alternatively, you can use a scribe, but be careful not to slip and dig into the decal. On the right side of the cowl, you can see some fairly deep scratches in the silver part of the decal that will not polish out. As these decals are unobtainium, I opt to airbrush some of the silver paint from the rear cowl repair and then clear over the top. While I always opt to replace a decal if at all possible, you can paint over them if there is no other option. I've used this technique to repair many decals in the past. With the repair complete, I mask all of the decals and polish out the cowl, first with a heavy compound, then a medium cut compound, and finally a polishing compound. There are some minor imperfections still, but for a 30-year-old fairing, it looks great. Having sourced a used OE screen in good condition, I spend an hour sanding out any scratches and polishing with Plastex before assembling to the cowl along with the light assembly. The cowl has come out great and is ready to assemble back on the bike. Next I tackle the two inner covers, and as these are a natural finish from the factory and have faded over time, I opt to refinish them using the same process as the rear fender. The left hand side is heavily marked, and so this will need to be sanded back before coating. I first take out the deeper scratches with 1000 grit wet and dry, Then I scuff both covers with 3000 grit wet and dry to provide a key for the Marhide automotive trim coating. As these covers are very visible from the rider's perspective, I want to have the most natural finish possible. So, to increase paint atomization for a smoother coverage, I heat up the trim coating aerosol can in a pan of hot water for 10 minutes. This thins down the coating while at the same time increasing the air pressure within the can. After applying the first coat, I colour sand the covers with 1000 grit wet and dry, then apply 2 more coats for a perfect finish. Moving on to the mid-cowl inners, I again remove any road tar and heavy residue with Goo Off. This reveals a few scratches that I touch up with the Honda Gloss Black. Both inners are then cut and buff with a heavy, medium and polish in compounds. For the lower cowls, I repeat the same process as the upper cowl. First sanding back with 2000 grit wet and dry, touching up any scratches, and then sanding back again with 2000 grit, and then polishing out with the heavy, medium and polishing compounds. As with the front cowl, both lowers end up looking great for 30-year-old fairings. After a thorough cleaning, it's obvious that the paint on the chin fairing and front fender cannot be saved due to excessive stone chips and damage from corrosive materials. Both parts were sanded back with 1000 grit wet and dry before being given a coating of etch primer, then 2-in-1 filler primer. The chin fairing was sanded back one more time and given a final coating of primer sealer. The chin fairing was then sprayed with Honda Gloss Black as a base coat and 3 coats of clear. The front fender was sprayed with the custom mixed metallic silver used for the rear cowl, and then 3 coats of clear also. In this last part of the video, I'm using Evapo Rust to remove the corrosion and oxidization from all the fairing mounting brackets and bolts without damaging their original factory coating. This is a great technique to retain the original finish in the cases where it is worth saving. The components are fully immersed in the rust remover for up to 15 minutes, but no longer, otherwise the process can remove the coating. I inspect them every 5 minutes, and once I can see the oxidation has been removed, I remove them and rinse with water before coating in WD-40. In the next video, I'll be flushing out all the old fluids, replacing a torn seat cover, replacing the damaged rotor cover, refinishing the exhaust system, detailing the tank, and preparing the bike for reassembly.